When critical maritime choke points like the Strait of Hormuz close, thousands of massive international cargo vessels suddenly halt. Nations reliant on imported fuel see oceans turn into active conflict zones. When seaborne trade is threatened, overland infrastructure provides the only viable path for sustaining a national economy. China already possesses a massive overland energy network, completely insulated from naval warfare. The Central Asia-China pipeline originates in Turkmenistan, passes through Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, and terminates inside China's Xinjiang region. This infrastructure delivers 55 billion cubic meters of natural gas yearly. It arrives with zero naval escorts, zero maritime choke points crossed, and zero war risk insurance paid. With the persistent threat of conflict involving Iran, Beijing has an urgent incentive to expand this secure route. If pipelines are immune to blockades, why doesn't China simply double or triple this overland capacity immediately? Upgrading this existing network from a supplementary source to China's primary energy lifeline faces three massive structural constraints. Geopolitical pivots are bound by the rigid laws of physics. You cannot swap an ocean for a continent overnight. The starting point for this energy flow is Turkmenistan's Galkanish field, which holds the world's fourth largest proven gas reserves. To increase capacity, Beijing and Ashgabat have long planned a fourth line for the pipeline. But the first hurdle is the sheer geographic distance required to build it. Connecting the source to the Chinese border requires 1,800 kilometers of unbroken steel. The physical reality of this construction is grueling. Engineering teams must survey unforgiving terrain, secure transit permits across multiple sovereign states, and procure astronomical amounts of raw steel before digging the deep trenches required to lay it. Every individual joint along those 1,800 kilometers must be manually welded, meticulously sealed, and strictly inspected to safely handle high-pressure transmission. Even with maximum state-backed funding and highly accelerated schedules, completing a project of this magnitude takes years, not months. This chart breaks down the project phases. Factoring in surveying, procurement, and final construction, the absolute minimum time from groundbreaking to the first delivery of gas is 3 to 5 years. Because pipeline capacity requires years of physical lead time, it is mathematically useless as a rapid response mechanism for an acute supply shock like a Hormuz blockade. China is not the only regional actor vying for these resources. Central Asian energy exports are pulled in multiple directions by competing high-demand markets. Kazakhstan holds significant oil reserves, but its infrastructure currently points west toward Europe. The primary artery moving that fuel is the Caspian Pipeline Consortium, which sends millions of barrels to Black Sea ports for European consumption. Turkmenistan also actively balances its geopolitical portfolio, exporting portions of its gas southward to Iran. But the heaviest footprint belongs to Moscow, which maintains historical and physical dominance over the Central Asian energy sector. Russian state-owned energy giants actively maneuver to control the marketing and physical transit of these resources. Russia also competes internally for Beijing's infrastructure capital, heavily pushing its own Power of Siberia pipelines over Central Asian alternatives. Expanding the Central Asian network requires China to systematically outnegotiate and outspend Moscow, Europe, and Tehran simultaneously. Even if the political and physical barriers are cleared, there is a strict chemical mismatch between what China needs and what Central Asia is currently selling. The export economies of Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan run on physical infrastructure optimized strictly for processing natural gas. In the event of a maritime blockade, China's most devastating deficit is not gas, it is crude oil and refined petroleum products. Natural gas is highly effective for stabilizing massive industrial power grids, but it cannot fuel millions of commercial vehicles or power a paralyzed transport sector. This split-screen chart illustrates the gap. An influx of overland gas on the right cannot chemically substitute the plunging crude oil supply on the left. Extracting and transporting actual crude oil from Kazakhstan serves as the logical secondary solution. However, pivoting to Kazakh oil requires building entirely new, dedicated China-bound crude infrastructure from scratch. Substituting Middle Eastern maritime routes with Central Asian overland routes fails without a decade of specific oil-focused engineering. The constraints are rigid. Central Asia cannot rescue China from an immediate blockade tomorrow, but on a 5 to 10-year horizon, these massive engineering and political constraints can be methodically solved. Beijing is pursuing a deliberate dual-track solution, aggressively accelerating the construction of the fourth gas line while securing dedicated oil field investments in Kazakhstan. This chart shows the projected strategic payoff. Over the coming decade, combined infrastructure from Central Asia and Russia could reduce China's overall maritime energy dependency by 15 to 20 percentage points. That measurable shift will occur steadily between now and 2034. Shaving 20% off maritime reliance does not render the Chinese Navy obsolete, and it does not make the Strait of Hormuz irrelevant. As transit choke points become increasingly weaponized, reducing maritime reliance by a fifth provides the state with significantly more diplomatic and military leverage during a blockade. Let us know your read on China's pipeline strategy in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe. Next episode, we analyze how China's CIPS payment system is breaking the US dollar's grip on global energy trade. See you there.